Okay, in this video, what I'm going to do is show you a little bit about coming up with the list of host addresses in various subnets. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with a Class C network, okay? And we're going to subnet that Class C various ways, okay? And so what we're going to do then is we're going to start with the idea of a slash. We're going to start with the Class C network, and in that case n is equal to 24. That is, the first 24 bits of our IP address are fixed by the network number, and if we don't subnet this at all, then we're going to have the number of IP addresses. Okay, so let's start with the case of no subnetting. Then all of the 8 remaining bits are going to be used for host addresses. S is going to be 0. Okay, so all 256 are in one block, just like in the previous video. And in the case of no subnetting, we're going to have 0 bits used for subnet IDs. And so H is 8, and I've got 2 to the 8th, or 256 available host addresses. So the number of IP addresses is equal to 2 to the H, 2 to the 8th, or 256. And the idea here is that then we want to come up with the IP addresses. Well, when we have an n equals 24, when we have a Class C, those first 24 bits represent 3 times 8, or the first 3 octets in the IP address. Okay, an IP address is usually broken up. It's 32 bits long, and we usually break it up into 4 times 8. That is 4 octets or 4 bytes. Okay, and so when we have an n equals 24, our first 3 bytes are fixed, and I'm going to write those as x dot x dot x in dotted decimal notation. Okay, and so recall that when we write an IP address, we're going to write 4 decimal numbers, each decimal number in the range of 0 to 255, and it's this last byte that we can specify. And according to the convention, the very first one available is the subnet ID. The next one available is the first host address, so the .1, and then we have a whole bunch of host addresses, and then at the very end we have the highest number, which is going to be, in this case, 255. We have 256 addresses, but we're starting to count at 0, so it's going to go up to 255. And this is going to be your broadcast address. And then .254 will be the last host address. Okay? And so this is the simplest case, 0, 1, 254, 255. These are the 4 crucial numbers to be able to get out of a subnet. Okay, and so sometimes I like to go ahead and make a little pattern where I say first one is the broadcast, and then I have a range from 1 to 254 for host addresses, and then I have 255 down here for the broadcast. So 0 is a subnet ID, 1 to 254 are host addresses, 255 is broadcast. Okay, and there's just one chunk here, so there's only one block in my breakdown. So if I have the case of no subnetting, I'll call that case 1. In case 2, I'm going to say that we're going to use a /25 subnet. Okay, and in a /25 subnet, let's see, the number of bits left for, let's see, the 25 is equal to n plus s, where n is 24 in my class C, and therefore s is equal to 1. So I'm using 1 bit for the subnet ID, okay? And h then is equal to 32 minus 25, or 32 minus the slash number, which is then 7. And I've got 1 bit for the subnet ID and 7 bits for the hosts. So the number of hosts, IP, or the number of IP addresses. Hosts is 2 less than the number of IP addresses. Is 2 to the 7th, or 128. Okay? And so, what we need to do then is find the range of numbers in that last octet that is going to divide this range from 0 to 255 up into 2 pieces, because the number of subnets is equal to 2 to the s, which is 2 to the 1, or 2. Okay? And so this is the slash 25 case, where slash 24, they're all in one big block. Slash 25, they're in 2 blocks of size 128. And so how do we find those addresses? Well, I'm going to make my little chart. I'm going to make 2 blocks, and I'm going to start at 0 as my subnet ID, and then the next subnet ID is going to be the 128. Okay, so I've broken the 256 into 2 pieces, and I'm going to have 0 and 128 as my starting points, and I'm going to have 255 as my ending point here, because, and I'll put 256 in parentheses under here because that's not one of our addresses, that's outside. But you start with the 0 and the 128 and the 256, and we're essentially counting by 128 here. And once you get these 3 numbers, you can then subtract 1 to get the 255, you subtract 1 to get the 127, you subtract 1 from 127 to get your last host IP address, and then you add 1 to the 0 to get a 1. So I'm going to add 1 to 128 to get 129, and I'm going to subtract 1 from 255 to get 254. So this is the type of little chart I make. So here's my subnet ID, is the .0. The host IDs, host addresses are 1 through 126. Broadcast is 127. For subnet number 2, the host ID, or the subnet ID is 128. And then host addresses are 129 through 254. And finally, the broadcast address is 255. Okay, real quick, I'll do a slash 26 subnet, and 32 minus 26 is 6, so I have 2 to the 6th, or 64 addresses per subnet, and I'm going to have 4 of them here. And I'm going to make my little chart like this. And here I'm going to count by 64. So I'm going to go 0, 64, 128, and 128 plus 164 is 192. And then I'll put parentheses down here at the bottom, the 256. And then I'll go to 255. I'll go to 191. I'll go to 127. I'll go to 63. And so now I've got the subnet IDs, and I've got the broadcast addresses. The broadcast addresses, we're just subtracting 1 from the subnet ID of the next one. And now it's very easy to fill in the range of IP addresses because I add 1 and subtract 1. So 1 to 62, 65 to 126, 129 to 190, and 193 to 254. And so it's very easy. You can make a quick little chart like this and figure out all of the last octets in a slash 26 subnet, for example, of a class C that we've subnetted. So Hope that helps. I encourage you to get out a blank piece of paper and continue this pattern. Practice making these little charts for a /27, a /28, a /29. Let's see, a /27 looks something like this. You've got a whole, you're counting by 32s in a /27. In a /28, you're counting by 16s. And so it's a big, tall chart, but pretty straightforward to do. Good luck with that. Hope this helps.